On the hospital reimbursement rate provision, it says return it to HB1 of 128, inpatient and outpatient services. So does that mean more money for hospitals than they would have got?
That is not a major component. I think you're reading a micro component.
Okay.
But which page are you on?
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is there any provision regarding hospitals or nursing homes or IFCs or ICFs that gives them a lot more money than they got under K6 proposal?
I think it's a fair assessment of that set of components is that it's a stable proposal. We have not made changes to those components with the expectation that we are going to work closely as the process continues with the interested parties there, with the hope that at the end of by the time we get done with the budget process, we will have a manageable situation for all the major stakeholders that are providing critical services through Medicaid. That's our objective, and we intend to work closely with not only the outside parties, but obviously with the administration and with the Senate to achieve that goal.
So just to be clear, that 7% cut that nursing homes would see in the governor's proposal, that's the same right now, but you expect that can be changed at the end? Is that what you're saying?
We will continue to review the concerns that are being expressed by all the stakeholders, and it's certainly not just the nursing homes, to understand them and to look for any appropriate adjustments that are possible within the fiscal constraints that we have.
Seems like you went the other way in terms of the local governments. You didn't really help them to the amount of the additional reduction they will receive or not benefits that were received by the 2% thing, for example. Adding the estate tax hit to that. One of the stakeholders described your proposal was underwhelming, suggesting that it just adds more fiscal burden to them, and even questioned the collaboration fund, said that wouldn't even come close to matching even the estate tax hit, for instance. Can you comment?
We are in a change of fiscal environment that requires government delivered services in a different way. We aren't representing or suggesting that the funding that we're offering in this innovation fund is commensurate with the losses being experienced. We are dealing with reality here, but we want to help that reality to change in ways that allows some good things to happen that maybe wouldn't be possible if you didn't have a little bit of money to get it started. And no, we're not suggesting that this is somehow commensurate, but the shutting down of the withdrawal of funds after 2 years, I think arguably is very helpful to the districts that are going to have to start getting ready for towards the end of 2013 to deal with the unexpected. They have an unexpected revenue stream in the estate tax that will disappear at the end of this process. So there is some correlation between those two changes that we've made. It's not a direct correlation, but I think it's fair to say that we are keeping both those policy constructs in mind together when we make those changes.
Can I add to that, Mr. Chairman? The Chairman and I are both former mayors, so we're very sympathetic to local government, but one thing about the estate tax, it's not something that you can budget your operating budget in on a consistent basis. And so in my view, at least, it's a lot different than the local government funds. One of the things that we're seeing in Ohio, and one of the things that makes this a jobs budget, is trying to turn things around so that we can keep people in Ohio. And I know in my district and in our former Senate district that we've lost headquarters, we've lost companies because of the state tax. So this is one issue that we have to address if we want to keep and maintain jobs in Ohio. So I think it should also be seen in that context, and hopefully with the prosperity that we bring with keeping people in Ohio, that will also benefit local governments.
It's a tough budget for everybody. Nursing homes were raised, and then the next sentence we were talking about other local governments, and that's a good example of how everybody is being stretched as we bring our resources in line with our spending.
Why remove the prohibition on charter schools now that it's basically the charter law says they cannot operate additional charter schools if they already have one or more schools in academic watch or academic emergency? Why eliminate that prohibition?
There are a number of updates that are being done to community school law that are going to, I think, be helpful in terms of flexibility in their ability to address different conditions. And there are a variety of restrictions that maybe don't make sense. Some of those have been adjusted in this bill.
What does it mean? I mean, it
You
seemed
give an
like
example.
this prohibition was in place to keep, basically say you have to prove you can run the ones you've got before you can run more. Why remove this prohibition?
No, that's a facility prohibition, it doesn't have anything to do with whether the school is succeeding or not.
Can you explain the language?
I mean, it could be two different sponsors in the same building. It doesn't have to be the same sponsor.
Can you explain the changes to the language regarding privatization of state assets?
Yes, and there's a range of explanations needed because the situations are not the same. As it relates to the prison facilities, there's a whole spectrum of situations being proposed by the administration. We're pretty comfortable that they have that plan ready for execution, and that it needs to go forward because of the fiscal pressures on the prison system. We're very concerned about the conditions in our prisons, and so we need to move expeditiously there, and we're comfortable that they are ready to move forward. And there's a range of things that they're doing that range from contracting the operation to selling the facility, but also continuing to purchase services for state use, to selling facilities for use by those private entities that aren't state, that the state won't be buying service from. So there's a range of things going on. We've got closed facilities being sold and so on. So we're okay with that. We're comfortable with that. In the case of the Jobs Ohio transfer, we've talked about that already, so you kind of got the answer on that. There was other broad language as it relates to asset authorization for securitization or sale or long-term lease that we have restricted substantially in this bill. It is narrowed to the ability to go forward I think in some transportation-related assets, but that's about it. And those are restricted with requiring further General Assembly action before any such assets could be reinvested for the benefit of our state, so that we have some control.
Might allow the turnpike lease? It's been proposed?
Potentially.
What about the tax treatment piece of that? It says that you can clarify that in the bill. Tax treatment for operators of public facilities. Is that?
Yeah, I think in general the policy construct is that if the state has a function that it's operating that's a tax-free operation, and we are then going to continue to have those services provided, the state's purchasing those services from a private entity, that should continue to be a tax-free, non-property taxable, I think is the question, and probably sales taxable enterprise. The rest of that spectrum is that if we're selling the facility for use by a private entity that isn't going to have the state purchasing services from, then it converts to a taxable entity, and the local taxpayers would enjoy the benefit and the advantage of having a local tax base change in their favor. Otherwise, if we were to go a different direction, it would become a case of general taxpayers starting to provide payments to local communities that aren't being paid now for the same facility, essentially. So I think that's the construct, if that made any sense as I explained it.
So to clarify on the turnpike language, it would basically allow for an agreement to be done, but the General Assembly would have to decide how the money was spent.
I think that's a general characterization that's accurate.
Why limit the authority of transportation projects? Was it Is there concern that there's too much broad authority for privatization of assets?
We don't know what we don't know. We want to know that before we do it. I guess would be a sort of general way of describing it.
So you're taking out the additional classes that,
There's talk of Ornet, for example, being leased, and you know, that might be a good idea, but we don't know enough about it to just grant summary authority to proceed, as an example.
So the governor would still only have authority related to transportation projects?
The governor would have different kinds of authority to, with three kinds of assets that I talked about. Prisons, the liquor enterprise, and transportation-related assets.
And on the
And they're all have a different set of policy construct.
On the Jobs Ohio piece, there was language about the governor submitting a plan by August 1st for legislative approval.
I don't think so. I'm not aware of that.
What's the tax amnesty?
Maybe there's some miscues and some languages out there somewhere. But that's not what's in the sub-bill.
What is this required tax amnesty program to give it
The state has periodically conducted tax amnesty programs to raise revenue from
where
those.
you don't have to pay your interest and penalties on owed taxes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and do you recall how long it's been since we've done it? It's been a while.
2005.
So it's been,
raised 66 million.
it's been a while. So we were conservative, probably an estimated 30 million.
And on the increase in passport funding from by 5 million in 12 and 10 million in 13,
Yes.
would that eliminate the wait list? Does this?
Well, I don't think there is a wait list, but there's a concern that one may be developing here if we don't get proper funding level. And we were hoping that this will alleviate that projected concern that we've been hearing in the committee.
So is this an amendment that was proposed by the advocates, the aging?
We had a lot of input on this from our own members, from advocates, and frankly, from the administration. We had a lot of, discussion that's ongoing, but that's the kind of input that we had that led to us adding some money to that line.
what was the reasoning behind taking out the additional classes that have to be taught by a professor?
That concept probably needs more work. It was a little, it needs a lot of refinement. We couldn't figure out how to do it in the time frame that we had.
There's only so much you can do with the revenue adjustments here, but obviously there seems to be an expectation that probably at least maybe the conference committee, there will be an increase in projections and potentially surplus money from this year available. Do you have any sense of what that might be? And if there is, what are some of these areas where you would probably direct that money?
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead in that kind of a prediction. The raising of expectations is sometimes a thing to behold. The range of possibilities, should that opportunity present itself, is rather vast. We might want to think about putting some money in the bank, otherwise known as our budget stabilization fund. We might want to think about paying for some better positioning of Ohio in our ability to be competitive from a tax perspective. We've made strides there, but we're still an outlier in some other areas. And then there are a plethora of, there's several, not a plethora, but actually several very large, very important programs that the state funds that, we might want to look at to further take the edge off of the impacts that we're concerned about. For our, we deliver 85% of our budget through local community-based governmental and private sector service providers. And they're our partners in this. And they're feeling a lot of stress in this proposal because that's where the money is. So we may be revisiting some of those if we can in ways that we hope will stabilize those services so they're not too decent, so they are less at risk for service qualities going forward.
But you have a provision in here to provide for the creation of a community school public college prep boarding school?
Yes.
So this is like a sleepaway charter school?
If you watch Waiting for Superman, you will know all about this SEED program. Huh?
I haven't checked it out.
I
Is this
either.
the Seed Foundation?
Yes.
Are they doing this event that's in Cleveland?
This is a Cincinnati project.
So somebody in Cincinnati wants to do this?
There's a movement with lots of private funding associated with it, that needs statutory authorization for this to occur, and we want to allow innovation to happen in that way. We, you know, kids that really need it, there's demonstrated great benefits for them because it's a track to go through, not just through grade school, but through college. They're tracked all the way through college with great success. It's amazing. And they've already been successful in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to say Baltimore, and now they want to come to Ohio, and we want to welcome them here. But it's going to be, it's not specific to them. It's a program that can be accessed by anyone who wants to meet the qualifications.
Is that program going to be expanded around Columbus and throughout the state, or is it just Cincinnati?
I do not know the answer to that, but it's our intention to get the program started for those that want to get it started, and we were aware that there's already an effort in Cincinnati that's being held up to the extent that the statutes in Ohio don't allow for it.
But it says for the creation of a community.
Yeah, we'll probably
So
start
it's
with
start
A.
with one?
Start with whoever gets in the door first, and they seem to have a head start, but I don't think our intention is to
Okay.
maintain that at one school for a long period of time. And it's a budget process that might, if other people want to do this, we'll hear about it, and we'll start maybe considering adjustments, if need be.
Just to go back to school funding for a moment, the 20% stopgap, as you know, there's a number of ways to calculate what your losses are.
That's right.
How is this, what's the 20% on, 20% of what?
Of your state aid.
Just of state.
Not the total impact of all the things going on in this budget, but it's the state aid flow that you know, causes some people to become very concerned.
So foundation?
Yeah. To the extent that there is one, there hasn't been one for a couple of years, in my opinion, and there still isn't. But so we're on bridge.
But before TPP and all the other-
It's what would generally be referred to as foundation aid or state aid. It's not other payments that are unassociated with line. Is it 511? 5.
So not counting the federal stimulus money loss.
Well, a lot of this wreckage we're dealing with is because of the loss of that money.
But not TPP or DREG.
I mean, the foundation is going down substantially because it was held up, propped up with federal money. The state part of the contribution isn't going down at all. In fact, it's going up, but it's not going up enough to even come close to counterbalancing the loss of the federal money that was being cycled through the foundation formula.
So when you calculate that 20%, does it include the loss of stimulus money or no?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it's like, what did you get last year? How much would you be getting this year? If it's more than 20% less, you're held at 20% less.
Okay, so like
And
school districts like New Albany and Worthington and Oakwood and Kettering, they're not going to get these big drop off a cliff. The biggest cliff they'll drop off is 20%.
Well, let me put it to you this way. If you were getting 5% of your operating money from the state aid, because you're a pretty wealthy district, and you lose all of it, you had a 5% cut in your operating, but you had a 100% cut in your state aid. But at 5%, yeah, so that's, you have to look at sometimes one measure doesn't give you the picture you need. But if you're getting 5% from the state and you're scheduled for a 50% loss, you only get a 20% loss.
I don't think anybody.
On a percentage basis.
I don't think anybody's losing more than 8% of their total revenue.
7.6, yeah.
No one,
And
no district in the state's losing more than 7.6% of the total
Of
revenue.
their operating budget,
Right.
which includes local money too.
Do you know how many districts had to tax this 20%?
Not very many, it doesn't.
I think it was 19, wait, I don't have the number.
Not very many.
Under 20.
I gotta ask you, because I work for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, about allows a city, park, and a county, Cuyahoga County, to receive an F8 permit to sell individual beer and wine Is that a specific park in Cuyahoga County, and who's
I don't
is
know.
that?
It is not a park in Cuyahoga County.
It's not?
No,
What county is between 1.1 and 1.2? Is Franklin now?
Franklin.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be within walking distance of where we're seeing, I think.
Yeah, okay, so which part is that?
So I asked Jim's question.
An exceptionally new park that's barely got the grass growing yet.
I'll be provincial as well. This marina at Cedar Creek State Park, was that already in the works and it's just provides?
Yes, that was actually recommended by the administration. It's a facilitating recommendation that they brought to us. It's agreed to by the parties apparently, because that is coming out of a fund that's funded from fees from I think the marina industry.
What's the unclaimed funds number? What was
That's the paper I lost.
I believe it was 70 and 85, and then we are taking it to 115 and 100.
70 and 80. The executive was.
Do you have a total number?
70. He gave you a total. Let's run it again.
The
Executive was 70 and 80,
Okay.
and it's
We are 115 and 100.
we moved it up to 115 and 100
And 100.
and 100 in a second.
So 65.
So you have to do subtraction if you want to know what the
So
increase
it's
is
65 million total.
Unclaimed funds.
across the 2 years. Sounds right.
When do you hope to pass,
Tuesday before midnight. On a good day.
Can you say,
We've been on schedule so far. Give us a break.
There you go.
sitting here right now, do you know there are a few of these things that still need some more work before Tuesday?
So that's always the case in a budget this massive and with this many moving parts. But this one, yes, they're it's a work in progress, and our objective is to get it to a point where we're comfortable enough to move it to the next stage.
Why require the lottery tickets, television advertising show the percentage of state support?
That would come under the heading of transparency.
Are there any requirements now? Because I know they talk about schools in the past.
I think it's probably to make sure that people aren't being misled as to what's actually going on there, but also to allow the fact that money is dedicated to be